Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Becoming the 1% podcast. My guest today is Derik Fay. He is the CEO of 3F Management. Together, we talk about startups, the concept of being an entrepreneur, the concept of actually scaling whatever business that it is you are in. You are not going to want to miss this episode. It truly was incredible and very, very inspiring. Enjoy. So why were you in Phoenix? First question. I was curious about that.
So longer is we flew into Vegas Wednesday. Mm-hmm. We had the Meltzer Show office hours. I was a co-host and then a featured guest with Hermosi and Layla.
Yes.
And then we did my anniversary. And
Congrats.
Thank you.
How long?
2 years.
Oh, that's good.
2 years.
Congratulations.
So then went to LA.
Yeah.
For a couple work house cleaning things, and then we came here for Brian's podcast and your podcast.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
I'm learning more and more, and we're figuring this out as we go along, and we've only really been going at this for, I think, what episode is this going to be in here for this one?
It depends on when we post it, but 44th episode is going live on Friday.
Yeah. Very good.
Yep.
So it's, I would say the first 25 of those were actually in the old studio. This one has really only been about half. So we're coasting along. And as we go, I'm learning that Phoenix is actually a really nice hub for this. A lot of traffic coming in here. A lot of events, a lot of different type of stuff happening that allows this to be a lot more accessible.
Well, your person, Amanda, is it?
Andy, yes.
So she DM'd me. I was on a plane to Vegas.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'd love to. Where is it? I was like, are you kidding me? We're going to be in Arizona. So it just was like perfect timing.
She is sensational.
Yeah, she's very nice.
Very gracious and an incredible person. And what she has really done is create a value around herself. She'd done PR and she'd done like business scaling, but the way a podcast requires PR, very specific.
Yep.
And just learning the intricacies of how to get in touch with people. It's just the whole thing, but she's very, very good.
Yeah, she was
so
great.
I like to start these things off. This is, of course, an open dialogue discussion. Yep. I want to hear about you. For the people who have no idea, never heard your name, please tell us, how did this all begin?
Boy, how did it begin?
Yeah.
I love this story. So I, as a young boy, I came up with this term. I'm probably 14 or 15 years old. I called myself an intermediary venture capitalist. Sounds very important, but in fact, it is not. In fact, it doesn't exist at all. And so what I've always been really good at is meeting people, making genuine connections. And because I was so very, very poor, I knew everybody that needed money, but I was also really good at identifying and making meaningful connections with people, at least at that time, that I thought had real money.
Sure.
And so it started out really, really small, where I would connect someone that had a couple $1,000s with someone that needed a couple $1,000, and I would make $100. And then it became 500, and then it was 1,000, and then it was 100,000, and then it was 500,000. And by 22, I'm a liquid multimillionaire. And then I dropped the intermediary, and I become a venture capitalist.
Real venture capitalist.
And launched 3F Management.
Yes.
And so there's some more details in there. But that's the quick version of how I started 3F Management.
So 3F was your first company.
3F was my first real, this is what I'm going to be doing.
Got it.
I mean, across the way, I had companies at 13 years old, 14 years old, little things, just trying to figure out my path and what I was good at. But 3F was the coming out party.
Yeah. So please.
No, and that was at 22. Is there any like kind of barriers to entry to like actually get into this space?
Well, for me there wasn't, because it wasn't like in my mind. Let's go back. Anybody can be a venture capitalist. People think you have to have an MBA, which I do not. I dropped out of college after 60 days.
It's like our dad.
Outstanding. It was the greatest thing I ever did.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, I went to college because I'm really good at identifying what I don't know. And I always assume that I don't know, even though I think I've got a pretty good handle on this.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, listen, I want to go into a big space like everybody else, venture capital. Oh my God, how do you get into that? Truth is, you get into it by having a couple bucks or finding someone that has a couple bucks, finding an opportunity, and then executing.
Could you define a venture capitalist for me?
I'll define how I'm a venture capitalist.
Please, yes.
Yes, because we're quite different. And then we'll circle back to what it actually is.
Please.
We're different in the sense that your typical venture capitalist is using typically other people's resources, capital, to invest in opportunities.
Okay.
And so they very rarely are building their own brands. That's what I leaned to initially. So we built over 30 brands from, I call dirt to exit, meaning we came up with the concept like you've done here. We scaled it. We put in the resources. We didn't take on anybody else's money. And then we executed and sold.
Wow.
Now, we also do more traditional stuff where someone like yourself has a business like this. I want a franchise. I say, I believe in you. I believe in you. I believe in the concept. I'm going to invest my time, resources, and sometimes money. A lot of times I trade my experience and my team for equity.
Yeah.
And then we scale together as a partnership.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that so much more. I love
absolutely.
I love the concept of distinguishing the money from the rest.
Absolutely.
Very, very good post. Speaking of Alex and Hormozy, does some incredible content work.
He does.
He did one that he was talking about, especially early on, understanding the difference of what it is you're getting as someone who's just entering into the business world. He used the analogy, perhaps you saw it. Speaking of Elon Musk, if Elon Musk offered him a job, said, be my assistant, I'll give you $100,000. Only a fool would say, no, I want two.
Right.
But oftentimes I think that is quite popular today.
I would say the majority would say that,
Uh-huh.
which is insane.
That's insane.
Right.
Everybody wants to sort of just skip the line and go right to being the king. Something you pointed out. I love that one. I love that post. I took a deep dive this morning, you guys. I watched the last 30 posts that you did. But that, I think, is a real problem for a lot, especially young men. And a lot of times, our demographic is primarily men. We get a lot of questions from people primarily between the ages of like 18 to 40, something like that. And a lot of times it's asking questions similar along this line, like, how did you get there? Tell me in 5 seconds. Yep. And that's not easy. It's not easy to explain all the steps and what you had to do to get there. But a really good one to latch onto in the beginning is to do something and never focus on the money. Never focus on that aspect of it. Concentrate on the experience. And in that kind of a venture capitalist partnership, it would make more sense to me to partner with somebody who's like, okay, we're not going to do money, but I'm going to actually give you systems. I'm going to show you how to scale, hopefully get you from here to here.
And on that point, the initial big objection is exactly what you just talked about. People hold on to equity. I love this analogy. I say all the time, like Gollum in Lord of the Rings. It's my equity. It's my equity.
That.
Well, but your equity is worth nothing.
Yeah.
So 50% of $1 million is way more than 100% of 100,000.
Uh-huh.
But regardless of the sense that makes to everybody at this table, it is the number one objection. It's the number one hurdle to overcome. And when I'm investing, the reason our ratio, your typical VC is like a 20% success rate. You throw money at everything and the big one sticks and it overarches all the other losses. With me, it's more like 90% success rate because you get me. You get my team, you get my C-suite, you get our technology, our resources, our connections. And so that makes the success rate way higher. But most people are like, I don't even want that. Just give me the check. And I said, well, my favorite thing is I'm not a bank.
Yeah.
As your pro rata partner, when it comes time to put in money to grow the company, that's when you get the money.
Please.
Sorry. Out of curiosity, because you just mentioned the fact that when you come to a company and you say, hey, like, give up 50%, we're going to build all these systems and we're going to build together. How much of that resistance to joining a VC or anything is more emotional, of like they've built this, it's their baby, they don't want to give up ownership, and how much of it is actually logic of, I don't want to give up 50% of what could be worth 10 million in 5 years?
It's all emotional because logic is easy. I love logic. So if you're coming not at me, but if you're discussing and you're using logic, then we can have a real fundamental financial conversation and I'll demonstrate my opinion. And if it doesn't agree with it, it doesn't work. That's okay. But it is very much often emotional. And I have to keep control of my company, so I want 51%. And my favorite thing is I can own 1% of your company and be completely in control from an operating standpoint. And so again, equity is essentially meaningless. It's the value of each share or equity point. And then from a control mechanism, equity has nothing to do with anything in the game. And that's where people really get lost, especially when they get into bed with a VC firm. No names or anything, but you can start with a VC firm where they have 10% and you have the illusion of control. And then every time they will just start dumping cash into your company. And if you don't keep up with that cash within 6 months or a year, they own all of your company and you're gone.
Man, yeah, that is a risk. You mentioned a 90% success rate with the companies that you foster through your systems and everything. Do you think is that reflective of what I would assume is a very, very tedious selection process that you guys make? Or is that because of the incredible nature of the companies? How would you say that works? Because that's high. I mean, that's a really good track record.
I would say yes to all of those, but let's not forget there is a little bit of luck.
I did have a question. I wanted to transition and ask about your experience with the fitness industry.
Yes.
Now, I understand that you have done quite an incredible job taking your gym, what was it called? Your
Around the Clock Fitness.
Around the Clock Fitness. And was that a national brand? How many locations did you have?
No, so it was my concept from dirt to exit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this was this an existing company that you partnered with? Or no, you brought this from the very beginning to the... Wow.
Yeah, I literally drew the logo.
Sick.
Like from the beginning.
Oh my gosh,
I was my own architect. I designed every inch of every location. I placed every piece of equipment. I purchased every piece of equipment. Everything.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Yeah, let's go.
we have found some equal ground on something
sure.
we could talk about.
Which is why I appreciate this so much.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that you appreciate it.
I do.
It is one of the most rewarding things I've ever done with my life so far. What was it like? I mean, why do it? I mean, why even do that at all?
Well, how I got there has nothing to do with what happened when I was there, right?
Okay.
So for me, it was I'm very creative and very artistic. And so I found it to be a very creative outlet. Like I would get into these designs and 8 hours would go by. I didn't even eat. Like it was, so the gyms have always been a passion for me. I'm an athlete. I always work out, always will. I believe it's really important for me to de-stress and think.
Absolutely.
But going to gyms, there was always in my mind some traffic flow issues. So for me, in my mind, I was recreating the industry.
Yeah.
Right? Whether I did or didn't doesn't really matter. But that level of passion and commitment
Yes.
is what allowed me to destroy the Goliaths in the industry.
Yes.
And we absolutely devastated LA Fitness, who at the time, and you could argue still pretty big now, but they were everything. And we're talking almost 18 years ago. They were the god in the industry.
Yeah.
And so I identified some really important things.
Okay.
The outside of their building, they do a great job of it looking really impressive. And then they do an amazing job of getting that individual area really juiced up about fitness. And then they do something really poorly because they're so busy scaling. Within 6 to 9 months, they turn their back on staff. There's no support for their team. They stop putting money into equipment. So then they disappoint the industry. So my model was build a brand new Around the Clock Fitness within 3 miles of any LA Fitness, and I've been open 9 months or more. And we were the new fish. We did everything better. We took away all the objections. Whatever they did wrong, we amplified better. They had a join fee, we didn't. They had a cancel fee, we didn't. They were a year contract, we were month to month. So we just kept pounding and we destroyed them.
Yes.
I mean, in our gyms, an average LA Fitness has maybe 4,000 members. We were between 9,000 and 12,000 members per club.
How many clubs?
So initially I had one club
Uh-huh.
for 6 years or 7 years. I just didn't want to build another one. And I finally was like, well, I can't avoid the fact that this is really successful.
Yeah.
So then we went on
It's a good problem to have.
100%. We went on a spree in like 2 or 3 years and built 6 more clubs.
Whoa. All in Florida?
All in Florida.
All in Florida.
But our 7 clubs, volume-wise, was like 20 LA Fitnesses. So our clubs were, like I said, 30 to 70,000 square feet. My last one was an ego build for sure. I called it the Disneyland for, fitness guys. It was three levels and mezzanines and arcades and all this type of stuff.
Yes.
But I knew I was exiting. And so I said, this last one, I'm going to be really exciting for the new buyers, which ended up being Town Sports International.
Wow.
Yep.
Maybe a dumb question with a name like Around the Clock Fitness, but was it a 24-hour facility?
I love that you just asked that. Because every time people used to ask it, I used to go, are you serious? Yes, it was 24/7, 365.
Is LA Fitness 24 hours?
No.
See, there's another one. That's a big one.
Huge.
For a commercial space, that's possibly the biggest thing people need is
huge.
They have to be able to go in there whenever their
Full
schedule
access.
allows.
And we were always staffed.
Whoa, even all night long. You had staff.
24/7, 365. Because I wanted the same experience at 3 a.m. that you had at 3 p.m. So we had staff, we had cleaning staff, we had a full service deli, everything you could do. Because listen, it's not your fault that you happen to work until 1 a.m. And you get a subpar experience at the club. To me, that didn't seem fair.
Yeah.
So these were the little things that we did that just made us really successful. And then there was one design aspect that I've talked about just recently online, is one of the most fundamental problems I see in the industry is the dumbbell area. There's one dumbbell area, and if you're a big bodybuilder and you're launching these 150s and dropping them, and then my grandfather comes in, he's just trying to figure out how to lift like the 5 or 10s, then you get the bunnies in the... everyone goes to one area.
Yeah.
And for me, I said, well, that's why people quit. And so we strategically put different free weight areas, and it was controlled by weight size. So some would only go up to 50.
Oh, I love this.
And just like you've done, different decor, different music, different temperature settings. So it wasn't separated, but it was enough where I can go to my zone and feel really comfortable. And then it almost became like a transition. Hey, I built up some confidence over here. Let me go test that pond.
Yeah.
And that took us from that 4,000 to just 10, 12,000 members.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Is your location still blossoming? I mean, if I go to Florida right now, can I find them?
So I sold in 2019, 3 months before COVID.
There you go.
Right.
Man, talk about playing that one right.
Well, I can't take credit for that.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no way to know.
I can't say.
Us neither.
Listen.
Because COVID, I mean, for what we were doing was, I was telling James, this
This was everything.
This was everything. We
Everything.
quadrupled during COVID.
Of course you did.
We had 6 weeks where I think we were the only open facility in the state.
Yeah.
It's weird.
So
But
we were exploding with growth when I decided to sell. I mean, like 300% growth. Compounded annual growth rate was off the chart. Everyone told me I was insane to sell. But this is important, I think, for people to hear, for me, and I think for everybody. Once you start to get stale in your business, no matter how good that is going, whether revenues are climbing, profitability, you're not adding value anymore.
what do you mean by stale? What does that mean?
I wasn't the same Derik I was when I started building clubs. I had done it 7 times. I'd been in it for 13 years. I was going through the motions. It wasn't innovating anymore. I was just reproducing what I'd already done.
Got it.
And so for me, that's always a trigger. It's time for me to get out. And I believe you should sell your company on the way up. You leave some meat on the bone for the next
Sure.
buyer.
Yeah.
And so anyway, sold to Town Sports International 2019, right before COVID. And then about 6 or 8 months into COVID, Town Sports International went bankrupt.
No.
Yes.
Even in Florida.
Even countrywide.
I mean, oh man, that's rough.
Yeah.
Because obviously that is the biggest detriment to the fitness industry that has ever happened was the pandemic.
That's right.
We've had a lot of times where we'll do seminars and we'll talk to people about this, and it is really astounding to hear the stories of some of these gym owners, especially the small box guys, just got their entire rug pulled out from underneath them during this time period. It makes you really, I mean, it's really sad, obviously, for anybody that happened to, but especially fitness, because it's such a fix to so many of the problems that were being pushed through the pandemic.
I agree 100%.
Mental and physical. I mean, yeah.
So what TSI did to try to salvage is they went to the landlords and said, listen, we need 6 months break. We just can't pay rent. 3 of them said, okay. 3 of them said, too bad. So evicted them. Man. So my employees, of course, they were all my employees no more than 9 months prior. So they reached out and told me. So I picked up the phone, called the landlords, and they said, we'd love to have you back.
As the owner.
So you bought it back?
Did you buy it back?
No.
They gave it to me.
I don't get it.
$0. All the equipment, the building, everything. They said, if you're willing to sign the lease and actually pay the rent, take it back.
Really?
So I took back 3 of them, renamed it Nonstop Fitness.
I'm sorry. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard. So you got it back for free.
For free.
Just under the understanding that you would continue to pay the rent.
Correct. Because I was a known operator. Because I'd worked with them for years. So then I renamed it Nonstop Fitness. Put, just a quick redesign, new sign on the building, stabilize it for a year, and sold it again.
I thought I'd heard just about every single story to come out of the pandemic on fitness. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. What did the employees, I mean, was there any, first question, was there any pushback to you doing this from any of the people on the ground level to coming back? Were they, I mean,
employees were rejoiced.
He's back, and then he's
100%.
gone. I mean, what?
No, they loved it.
They loved it. They loved that it happened.
Loved it.
Well, I mean, you did keep the lights on.
That's exactly right.
So you kept the lights on, kept them employed, and then found another buyer. Was it after the pandemic had subsided a little bit? And I just opened everything back up?
Yes. So I sold them maybe 6 months ago, 9 months ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about playing chess like in the dark as a master. That's insane. I can't believe that.
I mean, it wasn't a bad deal.
No, that's a great deal.
Getting something for free and then flipping it a year later?
I do that more often than you imagine.
Okay.
a gym franchise shutting down during the pandemic and then flipping it when it subsides and goes. I mean, that's something, like you said, no one can predict when something like that would happen.
Can't.
It's a calamity.
Absolutely.
But to turn it around and make it into something like that, and just that's an amazing story, brother. What is next for? Is there anything else that you've ever considered doing in the fitness arena? I mean, you've had such success with it, and you've got a passion for it. It seems like, and just back to the topic of you saying things kind of got stale. I could understand, to me, if that ever got that way, that I wouldn't, because that's sort of the driving force behind what I love to do. I love sort of the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But it definitely, there's a lot of potential in this industry, and you seem like you're a natural niche for it. Would you ever go back?
I always say no until I do. Right. So for me, it's low-hanging fruit. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, but there's multiple opportunities on the table right now in the fitness space. So the fact that I'm considering them means it's a high degree of possibility.
Yeah.
More behind the scenes than when I was with Around the Clock Fitness.
Did you ever find, see, for me, the biggest reward from being in this industry, and me, myself, I've really only ever been in two. I've been in real estate and I've been in this. To me, this is sincerely the only thing that I was put here by God to do. I know that. I know it in my bones. I find that the most rewarding part of this is actually being able to literally change people's lives and help them.
Yeah.
And that seems like something that, while there are other industries that of course could do that, the medical field, all that kind of stuff.
Nothing like this.
There's not a whole lot, because this is so preventative, because it's dealing with issues before they even occur, and because it's just so accessible to everybody. And there's nothing but positivity that can come from getting involved with a trainer or getting involved in fitness. Was that your experience in this? I mean, did that ever come up as a, hey, I really like this. This is one of my favorite things about this industry?
That's a great question. That's how it started. I mean, I still have a true passion for it. Like, it's my life.
Yeah.
We've been traveling for a week, haven't worked out for 3 days. I feel like garbage. It's how I reset and start my day. It's really important to me. So it started out very genuine, but like with any company, when it becomes, we were massive. It doesn't sound like a lot with 7 locations, but it's important to understand it was the scale of like 20. And I was the only guy. I was the founder, the 100% equity owner. And I took such pleasure and responsibility that I think, really looking back now, I think I probably just burnt out a little bit.
Yeah.
At some point I had maybe 3,000 employees, 150,000 members, millions of visits a month. And I think I burnt out a little bit, and I wanted something different. And so that's what I'm doing. So now you've talked me back into it.
Out of curiosity, because burnout aside, what is your typical exit strategy?
1 to 3.
1 to 3 years?
1 to 3 years. And this was 13.
Wow.
Fitness was the longest one.
Yes, by a stretch.
Whoa.
Yeah,
I love that. I mean, because like you said, even if it is a temporary venture, if it takes that long to burn out, that's good.
Yeah.
That's something that is worth doing.
Absolutely.
It's not a house flipping or something where you're like, all right, I'm in, I'm out. It's not it's something that actually has bones to it. It's an industry that you can grow.
Yeah, for me, that was probably, if I had to say, well, what was your dynasty company? It doesn't matter if I've been involved in a couple hundred of them. That was it. That was really the only company where I was the face of the company, the main operator in the beginning. I did everything. Now, I had an amazing team that I could have never even come close to the level of success without them.
Yeah.
But in the early parts of it, it was just me. 12 hours a day, front desk, juice bar, setting operations, making sure that every picture frame was perfect. Like, I was obsessed with every single detail of what I did. And I think ultimately that's what got us to where we ended up.
That's 100% what got you.
Yeah.
This is exactly the voice that goes in my head every time I go. Something I was told very early on when I started to start the idea of doing something like this was that if you're going to start this out and you actually want to, if you don't ever want to work for somebody, you've got to be willing to clean the toilets. You've got to be willing to do everything yourself.
Sure.
And in the beginning, you take that on head on. And let's say you're willing to do that, that's a good thing. Then you have to learn how to delegate and transition away from that.
That's right.
Was there ever a time, just hearing what you're saying to me, because we're on the same, this is the way my brain talks to me, is I have to do it all myself. I will make sure it gets done because I can do it.
Yep.
When in that process of 13 years, did it happen to you easily, or was it difficult for you to delegate, sort of let go, hire on? You had a very different business model than we do,
sure,
but obviously same concept. Exactly.
Great question. Hardest thing I've ever done, but
yes,
absolutely. Well, let me give you a story. So I had a chief operating officer, probably one of the best operators in the country, paying him real money, and I'm micromanaging him. I'm doing his job. I won't let him make decisions. And he came to me, and I've told this story before. He came to me and he's like, D, you're like amazing at what you do. Yeah. But do you remember that you pay me and that I'm pretty good at what I do too? And at first I felt almost assaulted.
Of course.
Because I knew I was wrong.
Uh-huh. Yep.
So then I started to very slowly at first push back and allow these really good people, and in some cases far smarter than I was, do their job, make meaningful decisions. And once I did that, everything changed. And that's when we blew up.
Yeah. It's like talking to myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
It's exactly the type of conversation that has to be had with every single entrepreneur.
That's right.
And you made a point early on in something I saw on your page where you talked about what has to happen inside of a partnership. And that's that will destroy your dream if you do it wrong. And it will blossom it if you do it right.
Sure.
Choosing members of your team that bring different areas of intellectual property to the equation than what you currently have. You and I, we see this, the visionary, the big, we see everything inside of a giant fire hose. Like we see it. Then you need somebody who's actually going to manage your dream and actually make it come true. Yeah. Where do you see that as an important, in the scale of what's important at that time? I mean, what would you say someone should look for primarily if they're trying to find delegation or partnership?
Yeah. Well, let's just say a bad partnership can destroy a great company. And a great partnership can turn an adequate company into an amazing company. So it's everything.
Well said.
But we talked about a little bit outside. You know, initially your instincts are, I met this guy, we hit it off, we're the same person, this is a guy I go out to have a beer with, and that is the absolute wrong partnership. That doesn't mean you don't become friends with the partner you should be, but most often, not only are there different skills, there's different personalities, and it might not be the guy that you're like, hey, that's the guy that I think is going to be my best friend. Well, but that's the guy you probably need, right? And so you nailed it right on the head. What I'm great at, I don't need someone else to be great at that. I need them to be great at the things either I'm not great at or most often that I just don't want to do. Like I get up and I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to do these things. But the other person wakes up.
He's doing these things.
But guess what? That guy wakes up as excited about the stuff we hate as the other way.
Yes.
And so that is the beautiful partnership that takes you to a level you could have never gotten to any other way.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
It's without the people in this room. And you mentioned two things. You mentioned the difference of intelligence and where it manifests based on your tasks, and then personality. I find people like me to be obnoxious. And it's true. If we get someone in here who is exactly like me on the exact same frequency and is trying to come, and we've had that happen. We've had a few people where I'm just like, all right,
okay, time to go.
Is this what I'm like?
It is exactly how you were like. You were correct. He gets a glance of what I deal with on a regular basis.
It's funny you say that. The times that my daughter upset me the most is when she's acting like me.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh my God, I'm a handful. My media guy's like, yeah.
And same thing for us with our parents. My dad has always said, he's always told me, he's like, yeah, you and I you and I butted heads because you and I are very, very, very similar. Your brothers are different. They're more like your mom. It's not the same. And inside of, especially if you go the route of any kind of podcast or any kind of live production, you will learn very quickly how those personalities are going to interact.
Absolutely.
What kind of a chemistry do you make with one another? And it's why we just vibe so well.
Yeah.
Jake, Eli, myself, we all bring very different things to the table. And I think on a big scale, no matter how large or small your business, if you start selecting members of your intimate team, because of course, as you scale larger and larger, you'll have the intimate members and then they'll get a little bit bigger and bigger. That first little circle, you've got to be on your game with the selection.
It's got to be right.
Yeah.
It's got to be right or everything else is wrong.
100%.
Yep.
I'm just curious, when it comes to finding an operator, what are the top qualities you look for?
As far as investing
Yes.
in companies, it's great that you asked operator and not company, because that's the answer. I'll pass on a great company with a poor operator, and I'll pick a strong operator with a maybe less than adequate company. Yeah. Because again, the company is the beginning, middle, and end is that founder. And if they are not obsessed like you and I were, with, or maybe all of us, with exactly what you're doing, this is a rough path. Like entrepreneurship, everybody glorifies it now. Everybody wants to be it. Everyone calls themselves that. The truth is, shit gets hard.
Oh yeah.
And if you're not obsessed with the success, when it gets hard, you're gonna stop.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, everyone talks about my success. There have been multiple times that I was close to bankruptcy. There are companies that have failed. I've picked horrible partners that have destroyed me emotionally. Like this is a bumpy goddamn ride.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have the right operator, and so maybe you're surprised. I don't care about your background. I don't care what you've done. I want to know who you are.
As a person. You
That's right.
invest in the person, not the
100%.
company. It's
Always.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
There's an outstanding, I like Bedros. I like the stuff he does
Yeah.
as well. He's an amazing, amazing man and an amazing entrepreneur and in fitness. I mean,
Yes.
come on.
Yep.
He had a post one time. I loved it so much. He was saying, he's like, everybody thinks they want to be an entrepreneur. This is what it is. And he turned his phone and he saw the clock. It was 3 a.m. The cleaning crew was back there and he was sitting there working. He's the only one in his building. There is an entire back end to doing something like this. If you don't want to be an employee, which I honestly sometimes wish my mind was geared for that, it's a lot more secure and safe. I sometimes envy the person who knows exactly what they're getting, where they're going, and hey, if I do this, I get here. The uncertainty alone is enough to bottle up anxiety in any normal person, and I don't even necessarily think if you're successful as an entrepreneur, you are normal. I think sometimes we're wired a little bit different.
Well, in this case, for sure.
In the
I mean, not that anyone thought that was the case after 5 minutes with me, but just clarify.
What's it's the best advice you ever gave me was to kind of like lean into the oddities.
Embrace your nonsense.
Embrace
Yeah.
the weird.
Yeah.
Because the world is so obsessed with people who are trying to just fit in and make. Sometimes if you just like, yeah, this is what I do. I 3D printed this and I painted it. And that's what I do. And
I turned my house into a business.
your house do a
Love
business. It's a lot of fun. On the topic of specifically business selection and the individuals that are running it, yes, of course, the entrepreneur, the person at the helm is the biggest deciding factor. But if you could, schematic a certain number of things with a business, can you tell like relatively quickly, like, oh, this is a good business idea, like within a day?
Oh, sooner than that. So I'm a little bit like the term Rain Manny when it comes to numbers.
Ooh, okay, I like that.
So I live and breathe in numbers. So if you show me your balance sheet of your company, I can tell you things about your company you never even knew in moments.
Really?
I mean, I get decks and I go through financials and I'm like, somebody's taking money, like within moments. So they're just things you see, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, outside of the operator, I've decided that the operator is good. And this surprised a lot of people what I'm about to say. I invest in warm companies versus hot companies. And so
Companies you think are about to be big.
I'll take what somebody might even say is a stale company.
Okay.
But it's consistency and it's a trend, not a snapshot. And so you've got a company that's been at the same profitability for 5 years. Some VCs will look at that and go, well, there's no growth here. They've stalled out. With me, that's great. You've got a market hold. And most often there's little things that can happen. Sometimes it's technology. Sometimes it's owner burnout. Sometimes they're not doing any marketing. So I'll take that company every day over the one that's 1 or 2 years old. They're screaming to the sky, and VCs drool over these companies. I'm like, that's a snapshot. Let's
1 to 2 years is a snapshot.
Of course it
Okay,
is.
interesting.
Even 1 to 3 years
Yeah.
is a snapshot.
Sure. Yeah.
In my opinion. Now listen, I invest in startups, but in a bubble, I'll take the trend over the snapshot every single day.
And if you had to put a amount of time to define a trend, what is it?
3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years. So a 3 to 5 year window will give you an
There's some
accurate,
there's some
semi-accurate.
consistency there.
Yeah.
There's some consistency there.
Is there a specific industry that has you excited that you're wanting to get involved in? And if so, is there any companies that you already are involved in?
And then this is where I'm very unique as well. Most VCs are here's my industry. I get bored. Right? And listen, really the truth, what are you? I'm a hustler, man.
Yeah.
Like I come from poverty, dirt poor, no money, Section 8, and I just figured shit out.
I'm sorry. Where were you from?
Rhode Island.
Really?
Yeah.
So you come. Okay. This is awesome. Explain that, please. Tell me, because I know you started when I was a boy, but I didn't get this part. What did you come from? I mean, not from. So you're not from wealth.
Oh no, I'm. So some people are born with a silver spoon. I was born with a spork. Okay.
Love that.
Or maybe not even. Okay, so born in North Kingstown, Rhode Island, single mom, lived in Section 8 housing in the projects. Now, when I say poor, I don't mean, sometimes we didn't get Christmas gifts. I mean, on any 2 to 3 day basis, we were wondering when we were going to eat. Incredibly abusive upbringing.
Oh, no.
So the worst of the worst. And so that changed me, and I had to grow up really quick. But it also allowed me to start seeing life and opportunities in a way, because I had to figure out at 4 or 5, like, how do I generate money so that my sister can eat? And so then I just kept developing that, and it just it got me to a place so much quicker than everybody else. Now listen,
At 5? At that age? That's young.
listen. Not to get too into the weeds with it, but I mean, no food, like having to climb up into trees and eat rotten crab apples because we were starving. And so that puts, but this is not like a victim thing, like feel bad for me.
Yeah.
I wish it never happened to my mom and my sister and my brother, because they didn't come out of it the way that I did, but it did build a resiliency in me.
Yes.
And a drive, and massive insecurity, which actually helped me become really successful too.
Yup.
Right? And wanting to prove everybody wrong.
Yes.
Because I hated how people looked at me and my family. And so while those don't on the surface feel like great traits, it worked for me.
You mentioned earlier the power of spite, and somehow if someone doubts you, or if someone looks down on you, if someone tells you, hey, this is not gonna work.
Love that.
Exactly.
Please do that.
You want to fuel my workouts, and you want to fuel my business endeavors. Tell me that what I'm doing sucks and I'm not good at it.
100%.
Tell me that. And
Very unhealthy, but very motivating.
Yeah. I mean, working hard in therapy, they go hand in hand.
Oh, yes, they
sometimes
do. Well,
it's
clearly for us.
yes, and it's something that I sometimes feel that exact same way.
Yes.
That if someone insults me, if someone takes what I've worked and put my passion behind and tells me that it's bad, I convert that. And in my head, I internalize it, which is not probably the healthiest way.
Yep.
But I use it. I at least know how to channel it for fuel.
100%.
You say that you came out of this. I mean, I can't imagine having a backstory like that, because we don't. But how exactly did that shape you as you start? Would you say that it was the biggest thing that drove you as you started out in actual business? Did you still have those memories as sort of your backdrop of, I don't ever want to go back to anything even close to that ever again?
Yes. I'm 44 now. I'm the old man in the room. I'll never not be that poor kid from Rhode Island. It doesn't leave you.
Wow.
And that's an asset and a liability. It's an asset because it keeps me hungry. Like, there's no difference today than when I was 20 years old, as far as the desire to push forward, earn, do deals, provide for everyone around me. It's different now because philanthropy is my biggest thing. But yeah, it for me, it never changed, and it drives it. It's more so in the beginning than now. It created a sense of urgency.
Yes. You don't have a parachute.
That's right.
You can't rely on someone to bail you out of a terrible time.
That's exactly what it was.
One of the biggest disservices I see sometimes. We had a guy on, an amazing man. His name's Alain I always mess up his name. Alain Ganali. He's a professional fighter. And he holds, I think he said he holds 5 black belts. And he's a 5th degree black belt. It's an incredible man. And he was saying that when he first got into this, he was bullied in school. His family was extremely poor. He's from a place where that was just kind of the norm. But his mom, when he was getting bullied, when he ended up failing and he got kicked off his team and all this stuff happened to him, she told him, okay, great, go to school.
Yeah.
Like, figure this out. And he's like, I remember at the time being very shocked that she didn't. I expected her to do what my friend's parents did. Storm into the principal's office, demand an explanation, like ask why. She was like, no, go to school, figure it out. I'm sorry that happened to you. Don't get bullied again. Go out there and learn how to take care of yourself. It's very, I think, Western 2023 to kind of have plan B, plan C. It's all ready to go when I fail. If you have the if I fail,
You already did.
you already did.
You already did.
Perfect. You finished my exact sentence.
Yep.
That's incredible. Mindset is huge. What do you see yourself doing next? You mentioned philanthropy. What does that look like?
So I've always been very heavy into philanthropy because I wanted wealth not just to protect myself and my family, but and more today now than ever, I don't want anyone to ever feel the way that I did. So that's a big driving force for me.
Yeah.
And when we had Around the Clock Fitness, I started a 501c3 charity called Around the Clock Caring. And so we started buying single family homes in areas where we earned money. We would find abused women and children, often in shelters, and we would put them in our single family homes for free, give them cars, give them job training. I would mentor them. We gave them all the life skills they needed to get out of that ugliness.
Amazing.
And move on. And so that was the first iteration of philanthropy. And now, I'm still doing those things. I still aggressively donate and look for opportunities, but I'm not a big charity donator. I'm more like, hey, that small town where a fireman can't work and the wife can't pay rent for 3 months. Excuse me. That's my level of philanthropy, because I want it to be felt. And I'm not knocking large charities.
Sure. Yeah.
For me, that has always been my best path.
So you hand select cases that you hear about to use the funds from to do what you said,
That's
affordable
correct.
housing, you give them actual systems, like life skills. Like you teach them, okay, hey, look, here is how you can invest in stock market. Here's how you can do. Really?
Yeah. And now this is going to maybe surprise you or maybe not. I'm starting to view social media, especially in the DMs, almost as a level of philanthropy from an entrepreneurial standpoint. And so I have no ask. I have no course. I have nothing to sell, and I never will.
Love that.
But I'm getting all of these really young entrepreneurs who are DMing me. It's becoming a full-time job, and just asking like really fundamental questions, and I'm answering them and helping and pouring myself into it, and it's filling a little bit of that hole.
Yeah.
Like from a really meaningful way.
Help someone for free.
100%. Imagine that concept.
Yeah. It's another thing that is really lost in 2023. It's a very undervalued trait, making people happy and just being willing to help out anyone from it. You've got to be able to get past that, because especially today, it'll become really, really evident if that's not your thing. If you don't truly care about anyone but yourself, that's going to come out. It's going to come out in your business practices. It's going to come out in the relationships you build or destroy. And that's truly incredible to me. This is a very heartfelt, emotional thing we're talking about here. It's very inspiring. That's the best word I can come up with.
And what I've found, and really more so very recently, we've been lucky to be around a lot of amazing human beings. David Meltzer, guys like that who have demonstrated, even for me at 44, and I feel like I've done a good job.
Yeah.
That to give unconditionally, the things that we're finding come back to us are so meaningful and so big. I don't care what you call it, karma, or the truth is the universe does kind of have a way of giving back what you put out there.
100%.
And so what we're doing now, from a team perspective, from my perspective, business perspective, we're just giving with no agenda. That's my new motto. No agenda.
And it's not magic.
It really isn't.
Karma doesn't necessarily mean, look, if you take the time from your day and you talk to 50 people who DM you, or let's say you help 10 families a month.
That's right.
All those people, they're going to remember your name. They're going to remember what you did.
That's right.
They're going to tell somebody, or maybe they won't, but someone will.
That's right.
Someone will hear about that.
Yep.
And I think that's another area. You mentioned social media as being sort of the pathway for this to happen.
Yep.
Social media is the pathway where those good stories, those positive vibes that you're putting out into the universe are all going to come full circle.
They do.
Someone can take, you send them a care package, you get someone in a home, they can do a post, even if you're dirt poor. Most people have Facebook, most people have Instagram. They'll go on there and they'll tell people what you did.
Oh, there's no doubt. Yep. And that's been a driving force in my career for sure. Yep.
Wow. Sometimes you don't feel like you're doing enough, and sometimes you do,
please.
and it's awesome, bro. It's incredible what you've done and what you've built and where it's all gone for you. Is there a company that is right now on the horizon for you? Anything that we can expect to see in 2023 from a business side of things?
We have a lot of exciting opportunities, but we also have a lot of not exciting opportunities. I mean, from like a, hey, let's talk about it deal. Like we're closing on an oil distribution company in West Texas right now. So I'm like all over the place. And then we've got a medical testing facility that just got a $1.3 billion contract from the government that we're working on. And so there's a lot of different things. And there is a gym concept that I can't quite talk about yet, but a very well-known individual that we're meeting next weekend. But that's what's really cool is, and you know this better than anyone, all of you, attention's the new currency. So for me, That's why I'm doing this. Like most people, what are you doing? Yeah. And by the way, when I started this, I woke up every day for the first 3 months in a sweat. What are you doing? Like, you're going to destroy your reputation. You're 43 years old. Like, come on, man. But I kept at it because I don't know any other way. I'm 0 or a million.
Yep.
No
here.
in between, right?
Absolutely.
Hair on fire. But what has happened, and it was very surprising to me, I've got big, high, like Fortune 500 CEOs that DM me and say, "Hey, I saw your reel." And I was like, "What the?
You did?
Are you, who is this?
Yeah,
really?
yeah. It's true.
Did you pay for this blue check mark?
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And
attention, it totally is the new currency.
It
if
is.
you can get, and it's how everyone can connect.
That's right.
It's how, I mean, this conversation is the result of a properly handled social media and a properly handled team.
Yeah, we would have
Good
never
job,
met.
team.
Yeah, we would have never met.
No way.
That's right.
And it is also, you've mentioned that you've gone on podcasts, you've done all these appearances in these places. Do you yourself host a podcast on the go, or is that?
No, so we haven't yet. My team's, that's kind of the next iteration because of all of the great relationships that I'm building.
Yes.
And having all of the people that I've been on their shows on mine.
On yours, yes.
And I don't mind talking, so I think I could probably fill some air for sure. A lot of hot air, but we'll figure it out. But yeah, I think that's something that's certainly coming in the future.
I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
All the tools are in place.
That's right.
You've already got your marketing. You've got the success to back up what it is you're saying, and you've got the personality for it. You've got a very, very good, charming demeanor with intellectual topics and everything. I'm serious about it, man. You really, really should jump on this, and it would be like that.
So are you hitting on me?
How far away is this table? But
You had me at charming.
it is a one of a kind experience in order to get people across from
For
you.
sure.
And just how to make connections.
Yeah.
There's because otherwise it would just be left to the DMs.
Yeah,
you
agreed.
can get so much more out of it if you can get those people face to face.
Yeah, I agree.
And Florida, like Phoenix, is a hub. I mean, everyone goes to Florida. We'll
really
go down
is.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're in Vegas a couple times a month now. I think we've learned that this is going to be another spot that when we go to Vegas, we'll swing in here as well. But agreed. I mean, I don't know that Florida's as big as you think. I think you're in the area and Vegas where it's really kind of blowing up. Everybody's going there.
To Phoenix and Vegas.
Yeah.
Really?
Podcasts, celebrities, influencers, that seems to be where everybody's pouring in.
Have you experienced that at all, Andy? I mean, has it seemed like it's growing, the network of people? And yeah. It certainly feels that way. And I'm happy with the location we're at and what we're doing. And I'm just thrilled so much for the future.
Yeah.
Brother, thank you so much, seriously, for coming
pleasure.
on. This
No.
was incrable.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
I would love to do it again.
Yeah.
And unless you guys have any last comments?
Where can people find you?
Yeah.
Well, we're all over the place now. I guess you can find me on Instagram. That's kind of our first build out. We're now going to other platforms, but it's just my name, at Derik Fay.
Yep. All one word.
All one word, yep. You can hit the link under the bio if you're interested in working with 3F Management. You want to become a portfolio company.
Yes.
Or 3fmanagement.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah, good to
Thank
meet
you so
guys.
much.
Great to
Appreciate
meet
it.
you.
You too, Derek. Thanks for
Appreciate
coming on.
We'll cut it there, Jake.